All right, good afternoon. How we doing? Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. I guess the lunch lines are really long because this morning session, it was standing room only in here, and this afternoon, I think everybody's still trying to get some food. So thank you guys for taking the time. This afternoon session, how many people in the room have kids in school? Quite a few? Okay. So we've been blessed, two of our customers, one's called School Health. They put everything in the nurse's office and the athletic department. School Specialty handles the rest of the school. So we've got kind of the school supply chain down, and we're really excited to talk to you guys about it today. So first and foremost, the agenda. So we're going to talk about who School Specialty is, and then we're going to talk about the problem that we were attempting to solve, and then the approach we took. So we've had a long partnership with School Specialty, and before you are about to make a major investment in your infrastructure, equipment, automation, we wanted to make sure that the facilities were in the right location. And then we knew the longest pole in the tent was a WMS Selection and Implementation. We are actually going live in 2 weeks, so we're excited about where we're at on that progress, and we'll talk about that. Then, to get the new facility retrofitted and appropriately put in place, as Scott likes to say, we're going to eat the elephant one bite at a time. We took the STA and the layout, and then we'll talk about actually doing the actual conversion in a crawl, walk, run strategy. So that's the agenda for today. My name is Michael Woolwin. I'm a managing principal with Supply Chain Solutions, Alpine, and I was born and raised right here in Wrigleyville, and I am an Illinois boy and been doing supply chain for 30 plus years, and really excited to be here. Scott?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thanks for taking your time. I know we don't have much time at the show, and for spending a full 45 minutes with us, we really appreciate that. My name is Scott Lee. I'm the president and CEO of Systems in Motion. We just happen to be headquartered right here in the Chicagoland area. And as you'll learn towards the end of the presentation, these two gentlemen, love data, they love spreadsheets, and I love turning data into reality. So we'll talk about that a little bit.
Fantastic. And then how many people know Joe Geltz from School Specialty? Nobody? Good. So Joe calls us yesterday morning on the way to the airport. His mom has fallen, and they rushed her to the emergency room, and she's in the hospital. So Joe called me and said, I'm not going to Chicago. I'm going to go take care of my mom. She's very elderly. Good news is she's doing okay. They're going to keep her in the hospital until Wednesday. So two things. One, we've got a stand-in. He looks just like Joe Geltz. We were going to try and play it off like that is Joe Geltz, but we figured we would say that. But number two is Joe just did a webinar for Alpine and Conveyor Solutions a few weeks ago as a dry run for this. So anybody that's come, we're going to actually go ahead and send that off to you, and then we'll get you in contact with Joe. He feels horrible that he can't be here today. But in his place, we've got Jim Chamberlain with Alpine, and he was actually the project director on this project, so he probably knows it better than I do. So good news. Would let you start. You bet. Uh-oh.
It's
mic.
always important to have an understudy. So that's my role today. So School Specialty, a great story. Like a lot of American companies, humble beginnings, founded in 1959. They've grown through acquisition and organically. And you can see on the timeline, they've gone through several different iterations of their company's name, different logos. The one on the bottom right is their newest logo, and their journey's taken them now to the point where they have over 100,000 SKUs, and they're supporting schools, children, teachers across the country. So it's pretty much a big honor for Alpine and CSI to be a part of this journey and to help them move it to the next step, if you will. So, School Specialty's purpose. We believe that every student can flourish in an environment where they feel safe and inspired to explore and grow. Very nice purpose. The promise from School Specialty. We empower leaders with modern educational ecosystems that optimize student outcomes. So the problem that they're trying to solve, the growth continues. One of the big areas is labor. So a lot of times, as you see, as you grow, the labor component just isn't scalable. So we're looking at different solutions that can help take them across their journey. So we've taken a look at many different levels within their organization to improve their operations. Starting from the highest level of a distribution network analysis, where should their facilities be located, strategic master plan. We're kind of coming down through the clouds and we're getting into storage type analysis, slotting, layout designs, all the way into very detailed automation alternatives that can support their business. And with School Specialty, they are a very unique and a company that has a large peak right before the school season starts. So any solution has to be able to handle their minimums, their average, and their peak. So we're going to tell you about their story today.
You guys all right back there? Hot mic. I'm going to go back to something that the big thing that so Ryan is the CEO. There's a board, and then Joe is the SVP of supply chain. And the big thing is if we make another acquisition, they've actually made 2 since we started working with them, and they continue to make additional acquisitions. And then the last one is they really wanted an unbiased approach to the overall plan. So let's talk about it. So the bottom line is if you evaluate any alternatives or automation, you absolutely have to create a baseline. The baseline says if we don't add any equipment or any systems and we continue to grow at 2% conservatively year over year, what's the cost of labor and how much is that going to go up? So they knew that their systems were inadequate, their facilities were old, they needed to make an investment. They actually contemplated outsourcing it to a third-party logistics firm. So Radial and CJ Logistics were 2 of the firms that they actually got a quote from instead of making the investment in their own buildings to possibly outsource it. So on the do nothing, we actually established that they get about 50 lines per hour each picking in their Greenville facility and about 55 lines per hour out of their Mansfield facility. So if you use WERC, Warehouse Education Research Council, or DC Velocity, picking out of bins, that's about right, 50 to 55 lines per hour. Out of case flow, about 75 lines per hour. You add pick to light, you get about 125 lines per hour. So we knew on their picking they were doing pretty good, but we had a little opportunity to improve. But look at their put away. Their put away in receiving was about 1 line per hour, pallet per hour, and about 4 in the put away. So even in a very narrow aisle, using turret truck or swing master, you're going to get about 20 to 25 pallets per hour. And then in a narrow aisle, a 9.5 or a 10-foot aisle with a stand-up reach truck, you're going to get about 50 to 55 pallets an hour. So we knew there was a huge opportunity to change their very narrow aisle and get a huge productivity lift. But if they did nothing, they were going to go and spend $9.9 million a year in labor. So being able to look at what the equipment investment is to be able to get the return on investment against that benchmark. So that's where we were. Do nothing. So we came back and we said if we made an investment of $5.7 million, we'd get about a 25-month return on investment. That really only take into account 2 or 3 things. Number 1, we're going to make some upgrades to their conveyor system. And then number 2, we were going to put in a warehouse management system. And then number 3, we were going to go to high density storage in the reserve storage and go to that 9.5-foot aisle. So knowing that we can make some small improvements, we got less than almost a 2-year return on investment. That was kind of the marching order, and the team said, great, before we go do this, are our facilities in the right location? So step 1, strategic master plan, 5-year horizon, 2% growth. If I don't do anything, what's my labor cost going to be? Now I've got a benchmark to evaluate alternatives on. Step 2, I've got 4 sites. Now I'm going to go make investments in my Greenville and Mansfield, Greenville, Wisconsin, Mansfield, Ohio are my 2 biggest sites. If I go make an investment in that, are they in the right location? So we looked at all their inbound and outbound transportation to do a distribution network analysis and determine what's the trade-off of either moving a facility or keeping it in the same location. So this is interesting, is if you think about where the schools are, they're in urban populated environments. On the bottom, you can see the heat map. There are so many schools, private, public, in that upper northeast quadrant that pulls the distribution center up to the far right. On the flip side, you got a little bit in Texas, and then the West Coast is pulling it to the, I guess, your left, my right. So I'm looking at it backwards here, but I think you guys get the gist. So once we actually looked at it, we did a single DC network and said, if you were gonna do both inbound and outbound transportation, it'd be north of Indianapolis. If you do inbound and outbound and just really focus on your distribution service, it'd be south of Indianapolis. Go figure with the two pulling directions. But we've got 4 DCs today, so where should the DCs be? Well, if you're gonna do a 2 DC greenfield, the best locations were Clinton, New Jersey, and Overland Park, Kansas. Now, I think you guys have probably seen New Jersey's actually shutting down. They don't want more distribution centers. There's too much congestion. So now everybody's kind of coming into the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area and those types of things. But this was a great exercise to understand where should they be. Now, what's the cost benefit? So looking at the fact that we've got a 2 DC network, Harrisburg and Overland Park saves us only about $1.25 million a year compared to Greenville, Wisconsin, and Mansfield, Ohio. I don't know about you guys, but you can't build a brand new DC for $1.25 million in transportation spend. So this decision was, let's keep the DCs where they're at, let's fix those. Okay, great. So how do we start? Well, we said the WMS was going to be the longest pole in the tent. So if you take a look at their current state, they wanted to build a future roadmap. They wanted to get an understanding of the current supply chain needs. So you think about it, their peak season is May, June, and July, right? Because they're shipping everything to the schools to make sure that the schools have everything they need. And then the replenishment orders are August, September, October, November, December. January, they're pretty much done. February, March, they're starting to build inventory up, getting ready for the next school season. So what they had in place is they had in Greenville, Pick-to-Light, a WCS, they had RF units, they had Sterling WMS, and then they had a TMS, which was also the same that they had in Mansfield. In Lancaster, they only had the RF, the Sterling WMS, and a TMS. And then in Nashua, they actually had Radio Beacon, which was an old WMS that got purchased by Kerber, which is now called Warehouse Edge. So they knew that they had some different products going on. We understood exactly what the current landscape and infrastructure was. Then we actually determined, so here's the deal. If you've got 4 assets, space, equipment, labor, control within your operation, the control is a systems part. Everybody out there, every WMS vendor that's here can do the receive, store, pick, pack, ship. But the question is, what are the unique requirements that your business or your operation has, and how does that match up against what they have to offer? And I will tell you that every WMS vendor will have 2 or 3 things that you want that don't match. So one vendor might be able to solve one of those 3, one vendor might be able to solve 2 of those 3, and one vendor might solve one of the others that somebody else didn't. So it's going to be a trade-off. So when we started getting the requirements together, they really wanted to go to voice. They wanted to integrate to a warehouse control system. They wanted cartonization. Today, they've got 30 plus packers that actually pack out the orders. So if you can actually cartonize, pick directly into the outbound carton, you eliminate all those pack stations, okay? Now they also have each picking from bin shelves and case flow, but they also have non-conveyable. So bigger items that have to get picked to a pallet, and then those are shipped LTL. So they have to do order consolidation. So that was a big part for them. And then the big part is thinking about the end in mind, how they actually gonna work with an e-commerce and compete. These are schools. Today, they still get mail order, faxes, yes, I said faxes, and emails. So can we put a portal out there? Could we allow our customers to actually sign into a portal and get our orders down? Both school health and school specialty, one of their biggest challenges is actually getting a physical order into their system so they can actually go pick it. So we got the requirements together, and then what we did is we actually did a discovery, and we understood exactly what these unique requirements are, and we worked with the team. When you start to embrace a new WMS, changing the way that you receive, store, pick, pack, ship today, and thinking about the art of the possible. What's best in class? What's best practice? How does the system allow me to actually embrace and do my job differently? That was a big part of it, is changing. A lot of their pickers in Greenville have been there for 20 plus years. A lot of their pickers in Mansfield have been there 14, 15 years. So now we're going to put a new tool in their hand and they're going to do their job differently. So as part of our discovery and requirements definition, getting the team bought in to the art of the possible, best in class, and tapping them, asking them how they could do their job better. What do they think they could do? So really taking those requirements, putting them into an RFP. We've sent it out to 8 vendors. We got down to 4, and then we allowed those 4 vendors to come walk the site. This is a huge differentiator. When Alpine does a WMS selection, we allow the vendors to come see it. A picture's worth 1,000 words. They get this huge RFP. We let them see the site, understand what they're actually responding to, and then getting them ready to actually execute the demo. Now we facilitate a process, we develop a scorecard, we prioritize it, we rank it, we weight it. So at the end of the RFP, they score the vendors. At the end of the demo, they score the vendors. When we get done with that, we get a vendor of choice and an alternate. When we get the vendor of choice and alternate, then what we do is we take it to the next level. We do a detailed integration discussion. We do a detailed services and implementation discussion. So that way we're comparing an apple and an orange or a pear. We try and standardize it, what vendor is doing what services, what vendor is not doing these services, to be able to compare those. And back in the day, we used to do a hardware sizing. Now we do a cloud hosting, service level agreement, what's the definition of downtime, how many upgrades. So we really look at the cloud, the IT infrastructure, and the hosting to make the final decision on the vendor of choice and the alternative. And then we actually do reference calls and reference visits to be able to see it. Then we go through the contract negotiation and selection. So in this particular environment, the school specialty team selected Blue Yonder, which used to be Red Prairie and previously JDA. It's now Blue Yonder. They got a big booth here, as the right answer for them. So it was down between them and Kerber, and at the end of the day, the total cost of ownership was the tipping point, because this is a school supply company. Their margins are very, very thin. They're a wholesale distributor, and that was a big part of it for them. But we didn't just buy the Blue Yonder WMS. We actually tucked in the cartonization, which comes from Magic Logic. Some WMS vendors, it's part of their solutions. Others use a third-party solution. We also use the Optricity OptiSlot, which is their slotting optimization tool. And then we also did ProShip, their parcel manifesting solution. So these 4 pieces of software integrated is the final outcome. Okay, so we've decided do nothing, costs us $9.8 million in labor. We know that we need to make an investment. We've decided that the 2 DCs is in the right location to service the school districts. We've started the WMS selection. We're going live in 2 weeks. So that's actually got all the design done, all the acceptance testing done, and we're starting to do end user training, getting ready for go live. Now, okay, we're gonna start to convert and make the inside the 4 walls migration that we're supposed to do. So we performed a storage type analysis to identify the ideal size and quantity of the 4 pick location and the reserve. Now what's interesting about this is we start with the very, very smallest bin to the very, very largest storage profile. We leverage the Optricity tool to actually get the optimization, and then we came up with the delta. So this was the big part, is currently today, they didn't know what they didn't know. Doing this analysis, we determined that they actually had way more bin shelving than they needed, and they didn't have enough case flow. They only had 58 bays of case flow. They needed 140. What that means is they were replenishing a bunch of their items. Not only that, they actually needed 82 items in a full pallet location, meaning they moved 66 cube of a single item in a week, and they were doing that probably out of a case flow or a bin shelf. So now they knew that they actually needed additional properly sized 4 pick locations. And then with the pallet flow, they actually have so many fast moving items like paper and color stock and those types of things. They needed 84 bays of 3 deep pallet flow, meaning that they're moving more than 3 pallets a week of some items. So this was a huge thing. Joe and his team were like, holy cow, we're doing a bunch of replenishments. That's just in Greenville, had same aha moment in Mansfield. So now we've got the right metrics of what the facility needs and how we should do it. So That's great, but when we did this back in 2001, before we started looking at this, that $5.7 million investment, 35 to 40% of the material handling and steel costs have gone up. The significant difference, we said we were only going to make some minor changes to the conveyor. Now we needed to actually invest in a bunch of pick equipment. And then the quality of the conveyors in Greenville have degraded. They keep going down. They're old, they're legacy. I think they're from like 1980. So now they're like, hey, we need to really rip and replace all the conveyors in Greenville. And then I told you they made a couple of acquisitions. One of the buildings is in Nashua, up in the Northeast, and they wanted to split it into Greenville and Mansfield. So the good news, we had the STA results. We were able to take their volumes, tuck it into those facilities, and redo the layouts. And then they also just made another acquisition. So they keep making acquisitions, and you need to be able to accommodate that in the future growth. And then we looked at the ability to actually continue to ship while they're making changes to their facility. So the risk mitigation is really the big part that we're trying to figure out. Do we build a brand new DC in Harrisburg, or can we make small pocket changes in Greenville and Mansfield? If we do that, how do we do that? And then the last part is a lot of their fork trucks are old, and a lot of them were either owned. So now we're gonna have to go and get some new fork trucks. We're gonna lease those. And we went through an audit of all their equipment and what the conversion would be to actually get rid of some of the older ones, salvage it, and then move it over. Okay, so one of the big things is we were able to get 7% within their existing footprint, 7% pick face increase in Greenville and 20% in Mansfield. And then on the reserve storage, 50% pallet capacity in Greenville and only a 10% in Mansfield. So they know with any other additional acquisitions, they're gonna have to go outside, but at least we knew exactly what the building was. So we said, let's talk about getting some quick wins before the WMS. So when you think about installing a warehouse management system, you're gonna have directed put away, triggered replenishments, you're gonna send your pickers in a pick path. It's the best opportunity to reslot the facility. So we already were using the Optricity slotting tool to do the storage type analysis, and then we did 8 different iterations looking at bend and reach, golden zone, wedge, diamond strategy, light to heavy, and the team came up and said, we're gonna go with slotting alternative 7. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go from 56 lines per hour to 65 lines per hour. This is just making the change within their existing facility, their existing environment. We looked at a week's worth of orders, and what it would take them on the far left, current slotting, was $16,000 for a week. Now they're gonna do it for $13,900. They got the lines per hour productivity, units per hour productivity, and the total picking cost replenishment. So that's one of the great things about the Optricity slotting tool is you can actually run iterations and use a week's worth of orders with the XYZ travel path all set up where all the items are and know exactly what your cost is to make the moves and the benefit of making those moves. So we have this underway right now in Greenville. Mansfield is about to actually start making moves as well in preparation for the WMS go live. Okay, so we get the storage type analysis done, we got everything that we know we need, and then we work with our partner, Conveyor Solutions Incorporated, to think about the facility design and layout. Scott, you want to walk us through it?
All right. I don't know many of you, you don't know me. What you can learn about me is I don't have a very long attention span, and I hate data and I hate spreadsheets. So if you saw me, my eyes glazing over there, we need to do all this stuff. This stuff wasn't available 10, 20 years ago, so we used to kind of wing it. We'd surround ourselves with a bunch of people who are very experienced, and we come up with the best gut feel option. What's so awesome about Alpine now is they can take this and actually put data behind it. Now, I don't attend those meetings because I fall asleep, because I really love taking data, because Michael will give me a ream of paper and say, is this cool? I'm like, I have no idea what you're looking at. Just tell me, how many 6 deep, 3 deep, how many levels of flow rack do we need? Do we need carousels? Do we need an OPEX machine? Let's get this wrapped up. Let's build this baby, all right? So that's what I absolutely love to do. That's my passion. I've been doing this for 30 years. So to break this down and slow me down in most cases, we like to do what Michael said. Let's do a crawl, a walk, and a run scenario. And then we can break those into costs as well. So for us, that's what we did. is what Michael said, look, we're going to put the WMS in first. We can't go build these big new buildings. Of course, we'd all love to do green field buildings out in the middle of a pasture that have 40-foot clear ceilings, but we have some constraints, and typically they're financial and time, and lastly, working in an existing facility. So how can we implement these changes, get a great return on your money, and bam, we can because he's implementing a new WMS system. All right, on the operational picking side, what can we do structurally to help them? So what we can do up here, as Michael said, he gets the software in place. Today, they're handling all their product. Every pick, 2 times. They pick it into a tote. The tote has to go to a pack station, right? And now someone has to take it back out of the tote. They have to select the correct box size by gut feel and what they saw in there. Then they have to put it in the box. They have to add, it's just old, right? It's a lot of handling. So now with the WMS system, we'll be able to cube those products. It will tell them what box size to pick. They'll select the right box size, minimizing all the content, all the dunners that has to go in there. They'll put it direct on the conveyor system. We'll pick it one time, handle the product one time. We'll send it into a pack station where it will be automatically sealed. We'll scan an LPN, license plate number on the side of it. We'll find out what order that number is. We'll rate shop it based on what we know about the cube and the dimensional, and then we'll automatically apply a label and send it out the door. So a huge, without spending a whole lot of capital. So that's a huge advantage just by putting in the software side of the solution. All right, I know it's a spreadsheet. It took me a while to get through this slide, so what I'm focusing, I focus on that, just the simple stuff. What I need to know in the conveyor world, I need to know the size of your product, and I need to know how fast it goes, how much do you want to get through it, and then with those, we'll pick the right equipment for you. We've mentioned multiple facilities. In Greenville, we needed to do 18 cases a minute, and in Mansfield, 20 cases a minute. In the world of engineering, as really cool as it is, we always put a safety factor in everything. That's one thing you learn about engineering your freshman year. Just put a safety factor on, it'll be fine. So, we had 25%, we're at 23 cases a minute and 25 cases a minute. And that's really important when we talk about the throughput of print and apply. And this is on the technology side, how quick the data can go back and forth, our rate shopping engines, and additionally, what type of conveyors and sealing machines we need. All right, so what we're doing, here's our Greenville. Now I'm not gonna show you all the facilities, we're gonna show you an example of one. Now Michael gave you the background and the data. This is their existing facility. Now, typical, for those folks sitting in the audience, we've got our storage in our bulk. Now you can have 2 deep, 3 deep, you can have pushback. They have select rack, very narrow aisle, single pallet select. Not the most dense in the world, but available to pick all the SKUs. Hello. All right, they've got a flow rack and a quick pick off pallets. They've got a 2 high level bin mezzanine with all their C and D items in it. And then they've got a standard, like Michael said, a 1980 picking system, a conveyor system. All right, how do we get them from where they are today on this minimal spend in a crawl, walk, run environment? So this is the first stage right here. What we did is we highlighted, we're gonna put in a conveyor support structure because they have to keep running every day. So during the night and over weekends, we'll build a conveyor support structure that's outlined into red here. Following that, now that we've got it up in the air and we've created a safe environment, we'll put all the picking, packing and Panda, that's our short acronym for print and apply, our Panda conveyors in place on top of the mezzanine. Over a weekend, we will tie in, and I'm not going to go through this just because the essence of the time, I got a clicker around here. We will tie in their existing conveyor system here, and then tie into the old shipping sorter, and then all of those pack stations that Michael entered go away. We no longer need them. So just by this small investment in a mezzanine structure, and a little bit of conveyor and a print and apply, we can reduce all that overhead and increase their throughput. All right, now we want to walk a little faster. What comes next? Now that we've got the throughput, we reduced all those packers. You'll notice here, there used to be a whole bunch of select rack there. So what they'd have to do for a little while is get some offsite storage, put their bulk over there, more their bulk replenishment. We take that, we dismantle all this pallet rack, and based on Michael's storage type analysis, he knew exactly how many pallet flow, based on the replenishment, how much pallet flow, how much flow rack, and how many bin shelving sections we'd need. So Michael tells me in a very short few sentences without a spreadsheet, he says, this is how much pallet flow we need, this is how high it needs to be, here's the ceiling height, build us a pick module. And we can increase efficiencies out. We want to pick the light, we're going to pick the voice, we need zone routing, here's how many zones we need. That's a whole separate 4 hours. But what we're showing is here is that we're keeping them running. We've implemented a WMS system. They are now fully automating the outbound manifest side print and apply. And now, while they run, we're putting in a pick module to improve their pick accuracy, pick efficiency, along with the replenishment, which is key. We add a conveyor system that runs through the whole system, a zone routing system. And then we tie it in, go live over a weekend. Now, what we're doing here, we decided after a facility site visit, their too high a level mezzanine was fine. The cost to replace it was just way too much money. And it's C&D items that doesn't get that much traffic. We would end up replacing the conveyor inside the module. But this module right here, we're gonna leave in play. Notice what we did here. I'm gonna go back real quick. You'll see as we took the new module in, they were still picking while we were building this in their old flow rack. When we went forward, when we activated the new lines and tied them in, we tore out their old primary A and B items. We backfilled quickly with that select rack, and now we can close that outside facility and bring them back in and put them in the same building. So now what we're able to do with our A and B items is get great pick efficiency. Whatever's finished, we can send directly out into the shipping sorter. Whatever isn't complete can still go over to their existing bin shine, come back out and tie into our system. All right, so now now this place is rocking, how do we start using more of the facility? This one you can't tell a whole lot, but what we've done is completely dismantled their entire conveyor system, their old system down there. Because most applications, most distribution environments, it is very low margins, Michael said. So what people do is they tend to do value-added services. And our end users is you or value-added providers. So what we did is we cleared out this whole lower level, and these value-added services are usually performed at 10 feet and under. So we cleared up all that floor space so they can perform that. Then we take them to the final piece of the puzzle. Get on this side over here. They've got a really old shipping sorter, and now that we've sped up their picking and we've sped up their throughput, it's going to absolutely crush their ability to get it out on their existing swivel wheel sorter. So what we've done is we also expanded the size of that little mezzanine. Remember before it was just this little L. While we were building this, we expanded the size of the deck and put in a shipping sorter now on the upper level, because they still had to keep using that lower level until we implemented this. We made the down lines come down right into the existing doors the way they are today. So we ended up, you can see their old system here. Now you can see the new entire system. The thing that's super cool about this is we have to keep them running. We have to be safe. But we ate the elephant one bite at a time. All right, let's run. If we had our druthers and they had an unlimited budget, and we took Michael's STA and we designed the perfect building, this is what we'd build. So the other is what we're gonna do, but if we can go out in the middle of a cornfield, this is what we do based on the storage type analysis. You're like, great, Scott, I don't know what I'm looking at. So what we got is 3 deep and 6 deep. We've got a combination of drive-in and pushback rack. We've got double deep, and then we've got 4 pick modules. You'll notice some of them are 3 deep, some of them are 2 deep, and that's based on your replenishment. If we want to replenish every 5 to 10 business days, Michael's company did the analysis and said, well, based on that, you're going to need X a number of 3 deep sections of pallet flow, X a number of 2 deep, and these modules are 3 levels high as well. So we've got 4 modules that are 3 levels high. On these top 2, we've got all flow racks, so we've got case pick because the volume isn't as high. Those are our B-moving items. All the modules, you can start an order in any one of the modules. You can finish in any one of the modules. You can module hop between modules, and then within a module, we're doing zone routing. So we optimize, we spend as little time on the conveyor system as possible. We want to make sure if it's on a conveyor, it's moving and not sitting in a pick zone waiting to be picked. When it exits the module, like I said, we can go to any one of the modules. When it's all done, we discharge out. Remember in the other facility, I only had 2 print and applies. If we're going to merge all this together and put it in a giant, I need enough, when I combine that 23 cases a minute and 25 cases a minute, we need 4 print and apply outbound machines with an expansion for a 5th. We combine them, throw them on a shoe sorter, and direct load a trailer or lay them down for LTL. Bam, 10 minutes. And there you go, Michael.
All right. So in summary, we learned school specialty supplies all the schools in the US, low margin, out of 4 DCs. The problem that they were trying to solve was trying to figure out how they could actually do it, make the right investments in the right places. The way we took it, a strategic master plan, looked at exactly what they were doing today. If they did nothing, how is their labor going to go up? What their DC optimization look like, a 2 DC network, WMS Selection Implementation going live here in April. We did the storage type analysis and automation evaluation, uncovered huge deltas between what they had and what they needed, which drove replenishments. And then we started making moves right now in preparation for the WMS and helping them get a quick ROI. And then the facility design and layout. We've actually started to work on the crawl, walk, run to retrofit their facilities. So that's in summary. So the question is, hopefully you got something out of it. Any questions that we can answer for you and the team? If not, thank you guys so much for taking the time. We'll be up here afterwards. Enjoy the rest of your ProMat show. And feel free to stop by our booth. We got a happy hour today, 3 to 5.
Thank you.